New insight today on how working class neighborhoods are vanishing from major U.S. cities. It started as the country. New insight today on how working class neighborhoods are vanishing from major U.S. cities. It started as the country transitioned from a manufacturing economy, and it is now restructuring entire neighborhoods and cities. Joining me now, the co-author of that new study, Richard Flor from the University of Toronto's Martin Prosperity Institute. Richard, with a welcome to you. You say that the creative class is fueling this. What is the creative class?
Well, it's knowledge workers, it's managers, it's professionals, but it's also the scientists and technologists, the high-tech entrepreneurs who generate those new innovations and build those new industries, and it's artists, musicians, designers who are the cultural creative. So it's all of those groups. Taken all told, it's about a third of the U.S. workforce. It makes about half of all salaries and wages of all American workers.
Okay, and then you have the service class and the working class. Can you briefly identify those?
Sure, the working class are the folks who built America. They're the folks who work in factories, who work in construction, who move things around in transportation. Tragically, that group shrunk down to about 1 in 5 workers, and honestly, only about 6% of Americans actually work in factories. The service class is the biggest class. It's about 45% of Americans who work in food preparation, retail, sales, personal home health care. It's the fastest growing occupations. But what we're finding is that city by city that we looked at in this report on the divided city, that these groups are occupying different areas, that we're seeing a level of inequality in segregation that is quite severe and extremely troubling.
So, okay, what do you mean by different areas? I mean, how does the creative class expand into cities? What's the effect?
Well, you know, many urbanists like myself have been quite positive and optimistic about the comeback of our cities, the migration of technology businesses, of young professionals back to downtown New York, out of Silicon Valley, into downtown San Francisco, in Washington, D.C., and Boston. And what we did, we mapped, Alex, at the neighborhood level, the location of these three groups, the advantaged knowledge workers and creative class, the low-income struggling service class, and the disappearing working class. We found very few working class locations left in America, even in Detroit or Boston or Philadelphia. We found the creative class is colonizing the best areas. It's moving back to the core, of course, but it's also locating around all these transit hubs. You know, transit used to be a way for low-income people to get to work, but these knowledge workers and professionals want to live in the walkable suburbs around transit, but also we found the knowledge workers and the professionals clustering around universities, hospitals, knowledge institutions in the city and suburbs, and then finally, if you look at a Los Angeles or you look at a Miami, and we looked at all of these places, any waterfront, any kind of natural amenity. So what we found is the old divide that we used to think of as affluent suburb and poor city no longer holds, but nor is it rich city, poor suburb. We have a literal patchwork in America of concentrated areas of advantage and affluence juxtaposed to concentrated areas of disadvantage with a missing middle. Those good middle-class neighborhoods that workers and middle-class people used to be able to live in are gone, and our geography is one of the haves and the have-nots.
So, Richard, looking specifically, you've talked about Manhattan, Los Angeles, Chicago, but I understand it's a little different in Houston.
Well, you know, Houston is one of a number of cities. There has been a migration back to the core, but we're finding this in a number of places where literally part of the city is the western edge, the northern fringe, or the southern fringe. Washington, D.C. is like this as well as Atlanta, where a whole segment of the city is colonized by the more affluent knowledge workers, with the lower income, less affluent, more unemployed service workers and blue-collar workers shunted in the other half. And Houston kind of conforms to that pattern, where there are whole chunks of the city that are one way and other chunks that are quite disadvantaged.
It is a very interesting study from you there, Richard Flor, at the University of Toronto Martin Prosperity Institute. Thanks for sharing it with us. I appreciate it.